we start, can I please invite the Venerables to start, and we can all do this together to pay respects to the Triple Gem and also to do some chanting as well. Thank you.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Itipiso bhagavā Samma Sambuddho Vichacharana Sampanno Sugato Lokavidu Anuttaro Purisa Dhamma Sarati Sattha Deva Manusanam Buddho Bhagavati Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Sanditiko Akaliko Ehipassiko Panaiko Pachatam Veditabo Vinyuhiti Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Ujjupatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Nyāyapatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Samicipatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Yadidam Chattari Purisa Yugani Atta Purisa Pungala Esa Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Ahuneyo Pahuneyo Dakineyo Anjali Karaniyo Anuttaram Punyaketam Lokasati.
Let us pay respects to the monastic sangha who are present here today. So just to settle us in, I'm going to invite Venerable Ariyamangalā to lead us into a short meditation.
Relaxing your body to an upright and relaxed position. Slowly turning your attention within. Feeling a sense of peace and quietness within. That peace and quietness within is there. Don't have to make it. Just have to pay attention to it. It's taken the whole of the day for us to come together, the good people of Sydney. Everything that had to be done today has been completed, and energetically we have come together. Taking a deep breath in, holding it at the top and letting it out slowly and softly. At the next inhalation, at the top of that breathing in, put a smile on your face. Be happy for where you are right now. Another deep breath in. You chose to come together, good people of Sydney, the good people that are feeling and searching for peace. This is a good activity. Settling down, feeling your heart space with the awareness that there are many people like this in the world, good people like us all here, the good people of Sydney in this hot spot. Taking a breath in and smiling with the happiness and joy that there are people like this in the world. Deep breath in, feeling that softness and that knowing, and radiating out above, below, and all around you. Filling this entire room with the feeling of metta, of loving kindness, the goodwill for one another, that all that are here experience the peace, that have found that interior peace. Another breath in, relaxing your face and bringing a smile. I need to see some smiles and softening on that face. Radiating out, connecting, forming the energetic connections to the good people of Sydney, to the good beings above, those seen and unseen, below, and all around us, radiating a field of loving kindness. Taking a few moments of awareness of the soft, beautiful breath in, radiating from the heart out. In that calmness, in that peacefulness, radiate that feeling, that actual feeling that all beings that are having any anxiety, worries at this time, that from your heart you may share with them. Direct that pure, loving, peaceful kindness and make the wish that with whatever power of your intention, that it may alleviate them. Just for a second. And if your heart's really strong, just for 10 seconds. And may the power of your intention, this stillness, this goodness, relieve them for days, years, and with the full power of that intention, may that suffering be arrested in the here and now. This is possible with that goodness. And with that goodness, send it to your own heart. Recognize your choices. These habits that you are forming to have chosen to come here. Good people of Sydney. Know that and may it bring you happiness. One long slow breath in with a smile. And slowly bringing your attention back to your body. Slowly, when you're ready, feeling the contact of your chair and your feet. Slowly opening your eyes, maintaining that awareness, that alertness. Opening your eyes and return your attention to the room.
Thank you so much, Venerable. A beautiful way to start the evening. Just settling all us in the right way with the right intention. So, speaking of right way and right intention, we've got an amazing panel discussion coming up for you all. We've got a beautiful topic which I'll introduce very soon. But before we get to that, let's meet our speakers. So I'd like to invite each of the Venerables to tell us a little bit about themselves. Maybe starting with you, Venerable.
Okay, so I'm Ariyamangalā Bhikkhuni, and I am an Australian passport holder, but I reside in Thailand, in a small island called Koyo, near the Malaysian border, in a bhikkhuni arama of about, usually about 20 sangha. There's usually about 8 bhikkhuni, but it can go up to, some of the bhikkhunis go to other places for training, etc. So there's usually about 16 to 18. And then we have trainee sikamanas, 10 at the moment, and about 6 seminaries. So in Thailand they train in that way. Often I think in Australia you just go from seminary novice into bhikkhuni. But in Thailand they have a sikamana, and it's a bhikkhuni sangha that doesn't have much to do with lay people. We don't interact, we don't go out and teach. So it's really a training monastery for nuns to study the Vinaya rules and practice together. So I'm very grateful to have an opportunity to share with you tonight some information, because we do have often temporary seminary ordination for the LGBTQI community, for transgender, and for women to come along for any space of time, but we do have special programs that sometimes run between 8 to 12 days. So welcome.
Thank you for that invitation.
So my name is Bhante Suddhāso. So I am from the United States of America originally, but these days I live in Italy. So I been practicing as a Buddhist monk for over 15 years now. And for the past 10 years or so, I've been practicing together with Ayyā Somā, who we'll be hearing from in a minute. And together the two of us have started a Buddhist organization in the US, and then recently, about a year ago, starting a forest monastery in Italy, which is where we're now spending most of our time. And we're delighted, well, I'm delighted to be here in Sydney, so practicing with all of you for a little while.
Bhante, and we're certainly delighted to have you and Ayya over here.
Hello everybody. My name is Bhante Joe, and I'm a Canadian Buddhist monk. So I ordained in Canada and spent most of my time there in my early monastic years, with the exception of 1 year in Thailand. And in about 2019, I came to Sri Lanka, and that's where I currently reside. So I keep changing places, so it's hard to pin me down. But that's a short biography.
Bhante. And Bhante Joe, as many of you know, he also does our regular once a month on Monday sessions with us as well. Very grateful.
Hello everyone, I'm Ayya Somā, so I'm part of the duo with Bhante Suddhāso. So I think he explained fully what we do, and very grateful to be here and with the Metta Center. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Bhikkhu Akiñcana. I am training at Bodhinyana Monastery in just south of, about 100 km south of Perth. It's Ajahn Brahm's monastery, for those of you may know. I used to live in Sydney. I actually migrated to Sydney in 1994 from the UK, and in the 90s I became a student of Bhante Suddhāso, and eventually kind of in a sort of long roundabout way found my way to Perth via Bali, and took ordination, a high ordination a couple of years ago. I'm very happy to be back in Sydney. Actually, I really kind of forgotten the place, but I think, wow, it's really it's an amazing city. Actually, I really loved it when I lived here, despite all the stress and everything. But it was good. I'm really glad to be back.
Stress? What stress? Like fish in water, we have no idea. Well, welcome back, and glad we can remind you of the nicer parts of Sydney as well. So the topic that we have tonight is called Finding Balance, Effort and Ease in Practice. So tonight's topic in particular will be very practical. So it would be about our own practice, but also our life as well. Exploring how do we find that balance? How do we find putting in the effort while also being at ease? And so I would like to invite each of our speakers to just open that topic and share any thoughts that they may have about it. And maybe we can start with Venerable Akiñcana.
Thank you, Tina. Yeah, this is a good one, actually, because it's a very subtle understanding about right effort. And I think all of us are, over the years, try and find that balance, right, between striving too much. In fact, I don't really like that word striving. It's a bit of a sort of it's it's not like generally actually in Bodhinyana, and Ajahn Brahm actually does teach that he doesn't even like the word effort, right effort, in terms of, he thinks it's for Samavayama, he thinks it's not a very good translation. And so certainly Ajahn Brahm and Ajahn Brahmali both say that in English it takes us away from the understanding of causality and dependent origination, how things arise dependently. And if we think that we can drive ourselves towards on this path, then we've sort of misunderstood the teachings of the Buddha, what he means by the word of sort of putting energy into things, right? And but in fact, what it can quickly turn into is into a grasping, a drive to get somewhere, or a drive to be something, be enlightened. And so it can really take us sort of in the wrong direction if we don't really understand how to find that balance, and if we don't have teachers who can help us along that way of understanding that there is a sort of a subtle kind of recognition. I think one of the Ajahn Brahmali has a lovely translation. Many of you have probably heard it, the Vaya Dhamma Sankara Apamadena Sampadeta, and which is the last words of the Buddha, and it's within the Mahaparinibbana Sutta. The Buddha says it many times, actually. Kind of, if he's giving us a message, that's it, right? And I think traditionally, in kind of, it's translated as all conditioned things are impermanent. That's not very complicated, but Mapamadena Sampadeta is strive diligently for your salvation, I think, is like a really old translation, right? It's like, you gotta go. So Ajahn, so for me, and I think as you realize, strive diligently, work hard, and you'll get there. And Ajahn Brahmali has a really nice translation. He kind of translated it as succeed with mindfulness. So apamadena is mindfulness, and sampadeta is to be successful at something, to succeed, right? So it's much more gentle. And actually it's just saying, be mindful, right? And you will succeed. So anyway, I'll pass it on.
That's really beautiful. And just for completeness, right effort, how is it translated?
It is translated as right effort. I suppose,
to replace the word effort.
It's a hard one, actually. I'm interested to know, because even Ajahn Brahm struggles to find the right term for that, right? And he kind of says, just use Vayama.
Okay, we'll come back to this then. But thank you for starting off the conversation in such a strong way, and picking up on some of those themes, which no doubt, as we continue with this conversation, we can talk more about right effort, and also when does it become grasping, and also I like that, succeed in mindfulness, and maybe that's also something we can pick up as a theme to explore. So thank you so much, Bhante. Ayya Somā, any thoughts and reflections?
Yes, when Venerable Akiñcana was talking, and he used the verb driving, so what came to mind was actually that story of Ajahn Chah, where some students, if I remember correctly, I'll paraphrase, but they were kind of lamenting that he was giving opposite sort of instructions, and then he replied basically, it's kind of like if you are driving and you're in a car and you're trying to be in the middle of the road, right, then if you're going a little bit on the right, I will say go left, and if you're going a little bit to the left, I'm going to go right, which seem opposite sort of instructions, but the reality is that the effect is to be in the middle. So yeah, I guess that's how do we do that practice? How do we stay in the middle with ease? How do we drive, I guess, with ease? It's when we know how to drive and what we know what we're doing. I guess, so that's, I feel like sometimes the stress and the difficulties come when simply we just don't know what we're doing. So we have a bit of wrong view, wrong understanding. And therefore, it's very important to always go back to the teachings and correct the understanding. So another thing that comes to mind is maybe with also the suggestions that come from Venerable Brahm and Venerable Brahmali. It sounds also that it's kind of catered towards an audience that maybe like here in Sydney, that people can very much put a lot of effort in a lot of different things, and and they get very stressed out, right? So maybe then sort of the emphasis is a little bit to go to the left, to relax. But then, in some other parts of the world, and maybe if you go to South Italy, we tend to take our time. So maybe go right, effort, move it. but some energy. So appamada is also a very interesting Pali term, which literally means non-intoxication, so sobriety. So I feel like that's also something that is evoking that, that way of kind of a little bit knowing what we're doing is to sober up the mind, so sober up the heart. Sober it up, like literally, as in like abstaining from alcohol and keeping the precepts, but also abstaining from, like sobering up from all of the different things that can intoxicate us, including all the different emotions, all the different things that we might, the kind of righteous indignation or the just indulgence in all sorts of different things in samsara. And so as we sober up more and more and more, then I feel like it's the effort of no effort, in the way that then we kind of just can relax and just follow the Noble Eightfold Path, knowing that we're on a bright path, and we just keep walking, and then at a certain point we're just gonna arrive to the goal of cessation, of nibbana, without going like, it has to be right now, like, just by the power of will, may I be free of greed, hatred, and illusion. And then we're just not there, right? But instead we're like, okay, there's greed, hatred, and illusion, but I'm following the path, and it's just slowly eroding by itself, just by the nature. It's not even my sort of push, but it's just the push of the Noble Eightfold Path. It just works. So this is what comes to mind for me.
Thank you so much, Ayya. The effort of no effort sounds really amazing. I think before we get there, where I'm at is probably, if I don't put in the effort, I'll just continue on this stream of delusion and the stream of just indulgence. So exploring, like what you were saying earlier, in terms of knowing if we were driving, when to go more to the left and when to go more to the right, having that wisdom to know where we're at in each situation. So thank you for reminding us about that. Thank you for your sharing. Bhante Joe, any sharing?
Yeah, I remember Bhante Suddhāso at the end of the conference. He was saying, I had to go after Robina Corton. And he was I feel like I've got to go after her. I don't know what to say. So,
It's Robina Corton.
This is the second time you've been
Start off strong, Bhante.
So I was actually ordained in a tradition that has a very strong emphasis on effort. And when I first ordained, I was living in Canada, and a monk came from Thailand, and he was all kind of goo-goo gaga, and the Kru Bhajans, Thailand's so amazing. And I was thinking, I don't know if I'll survive there. He's like, I'm not really like that. I'm not a faith type. I'm more of a kind of critical character. I like to think things through. And when I left Thailand, I was the same, Thailand, the Kru Bhajans, and I'm still kind of like that. I still kind of talk about the Kru Bhajans, how great they are. And one of the things that was so powerful in Thailand was I felt like there was this stream, and I was talking to the Venerables just before coming here, actually, that you just jump into and it pushes you along. And that stream is a stream of a culture that has led, in my opinion, many people to Nibbana in the modern era. And one of the things that was really striking for me when I went to Thailand was that the teachings that we heard over and over again weren't like abstruse teachings when I was there. It wasn't like, okay, what's the sixth link of dependent co-arising and how does it relate to the last five? And, we didn't get asked questions like that. The things that kept coming up in Dhamma talks over and over again were put forth effort and endure. That's kind of what they kept teaching us. So it's just endure. The word for endure is oton. And so this was a big part of the current, I believe, of that stream that put so many people in Thailand to Nibbana, and that continues to flow today. And of course, that's a stream that needs to be well balanced. When I got back from Thailand, I was all into putting forth a lot of effort, and I actually injured my neck, which is why I need a towel to sit on today. And later I injured my feet going on alms round when it was freezing outside and there was ice. So there's definitely a limit to enduring and putting forth effort. And just jumping off what the other Venerables have said, there's that beautiful sutta with Venerable Somā. And Venerable Sona decides that he's going to put forth a lot of effort, and he keeps walking until his feet split open and there's blood all over his walking meditation path. And then he thinks, oh, I'm one who has a lot of effort, but I'm not attaining any noble attainments. What if I were to disrobe and were to use my wealth to make merit? And then the Buddha just shows up in front of him. So there's a monk who I really like, and he says, imagine that, you're just thinking something, all of a sudden there's the Buddha. You know, so then the Buddha says, were you thinking about disrobing, Sona? And he says, yes. He said, yeah, I was thinking about disrobing. He says, when you were a layman, did you play the veena, the lute? It's like, kind of like a sitar, I guess. He says, yes, I used to play. And he said, when your strings were too tight, did it sound good? No. He said, when your strings were too loose, did it sound good? No. And he said, in the same way, when you have too much effort, then the mind is agitated. When you have too little effort, the mind is slack. So he says, you should tune your faculties to your effort and there pick up your theme. So your theme here being the theme of your meditation topic. And the tuning of your faculties means the balancing of your faculties so that if your effort is low, then you still have motivation. It means using these various faculties to keep yourself going on the path and keep the current strong. So I think that's the main sutta that I come back to, as well as the Thai forest tradition. It's enough not to injure your feet, but enough to keep striving with. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for the reminder. Great sutta. And also it reminds me, even during the Buddha story, where we hear about the Buddha leaving the palace, and then he goes and does the ascetic practice, and then the story goes that he also hears something similar, where the teacher is teaching these students about the tuning of the musical instrument, not too tight, not too loose. And then from there, I understand that was where he started to eat again. So yeah, reminding us of that, and also reminding us of the middle path in a way too. So thank you so much, Bhante. Yes. Bhante Suddhāso.
So it's both a blessing and a curse to come after several other people in the panel. In that, one, it's a blessing because there's already lots of good things that have been said to build upon. Curse, and that I'm starting to run out of things to talk about. So I don't know what, you're going to have to come up with something. But actually that also reminds me of a sutta where the Buddha said that he could have a group of disciples and he could teach them 24/7 for 100 years and he would never run out of things to say. And that was just on the topic of Satipatthana. He could spend 100 years talking literally all day long about Satipatthana and he would never run out of things to say. So hopefully we won't run out of things to say. But yeah, the topic of effort versus ease, and the other venerables have spoken in more general terms, so I'd like to focus a bit more on during meditation practice. Because this actually is a really important place where this becomes relevant. And there are kind of these two major strains in meditation traditions in Buddhism. So one is the grit your teeth and bear down and just use all the force of your mind to kind of force the mind into concentration and force the mind to see reality clearly, which we see very clearly exemplified in certain Buddhist traditions. One of the more well-known is the Rinzai school of Japanese Buddhism, which really puts a lot of emphasis in this kind of forceful, effortful approach to meditation. And also in some Burmese meditation methods, there can also be this very effortful, grit your teeth and really bear down with all your mental strength on your meditation technique or meditation object. And then on the opposite side, we have practices about just relax, let go of everything, just allow the mind to naturally drop away its defilements and obscurations. Allow the mind to naturally relax into its innate purity, clarity, and joy. And so this can seem like two completely different approaches to meditation. And actually, again, as Ayyā Somā was saying earlier, it's more about knowing what is actually relevant to the mind. And what I've tended to notice is that often the approach to meditation that somebody likes the most is the opposite of what they should be doing. So you get people who are like, yay, I get to just laze around, this is great, wow. And then years go by and they don't really get anywhere in their meditation practice. And you get like the really like stressed out, like agitated, like high octane people who like to have 6 espressos in the morning. They're like, yes, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Yes. And they start really bearing down on their meditation and they just get even more agitated, even more worked up. The mind becomes even blurrier. So there's the blurriness of the dull, lazy, slack mind, the blurriness of the mind, which is just kind of in this half asleep state. And there's also the distortion of the mind when it's very agitated and restless. So I think the first thing is first always checking in. What is the actual condition of the mind right now? Like, how does the mind feel? Is the mind a little bit too tense, a little bit too worked up, a little bit too energetic, a little bit too agitated? Well, then we should focus more on relaxing, on just dropping things. Even slumping your body a little bit, like letting your posture slump a little bit, and just allow the mind to settle down a bit. Focus on something that's very soothing and peaceful, if you want to focus on anything at all. And conversely, if we look at the mind and we see the mind is actually very sleepy and dull and hazy and blurry, then actually like perking up, sitting up straight, open your eyes a little bit. You can use a meditation technique that is more active, that engages the mind, that requires some kind of ongoing applied activity, mental activity, to kind of encourage the mind to brighten up. And as time goes by, then you'll find that there is this place in the middle. There is this place in the middle where you're awake, you're alert, you're present, but you also don't really need to do anything. But to get to that point, you need to already have tuned the mind a bit. It's quite difficult to immediately jump to that place of effortless effort. You usually need to spend quite a bit of time drifting too far to one extreme or the other, and constantly counterbalancing that negative drift of mind to get it back towards this effortless effort right in the middle. But when you're in that state, again, it's kind of like being on the highway with cruise control. You don't really need to do much of anything. Like, you just need to stay awake enough to make sure you're not going off the side of the road or crashing into another car. But otherwise, you just kind of cruise and you keep making forward progress. It's actually like that with the mind. When we properly balance effort and ease, then you can get in this very relaxed but alert state of mind where your meditation practice just cruises forward naturally and easily. So those are a few thoughts. I'd be happy to pass it on to the next speaker.
Thank you so much, Bhante. And thank you for drawing it back to our meditation practice as well. Very important for us to discuss about that. Venerable Ariyamangalā, you have the very fortunate position of being the one at the end of all of these speakers for your sharing.
Okay, well, you look at that. I had everything done for me. So I live in ease. And then this is actually like life. When we realize we are connected to one another with good people, we're constantly in this feedback loop of ease. And then when we think about balance, it sort of makes you think like, where is the balance in life? That's also like a changing, that middle is changing. And what is a balance for yourself at one particular time may not be the balance at another time. So how we can use that with what Bhante has just said about meditation, what the other Sangha members have said on a greater picture, we have to contextualize. And how we do that is we bring it back to know ourselves. Where am I at in my life? Am I in the middle of my lost my job, quit my family, all this thing, so that we can orientate and integrate our practice, right? Because we can't be striving really hard. And one of the examples I can give, one of my meditation teachers, early meditation teachers, was very, very strict, and we would do retreats, and it was really, that took a lot of, in that beginning you just want to be obedient and follow the instructions, and it was hard going. And after, maybe a year in that place with the community, I noticed that one of the members that was kind of in my batch, he would come along and she would say, let him sleep. He would sleep for like 2 days. And I'd be thinking, like I'm also tired, and I'm doing that. And she understood, as we need to understand ourselves. Where do we apply the effort? Sometimes we are really mentally and physically exhausted. So we bring that kindness to ourselves and say, okay, just sleep somewhat. And then also we know about those efforts when we kind of release and soften and connect with the goodness around us. Then there's that ease, because you can be kind to yourself. And when you're kind to yourself, you experience what Ayya said. There's effort in no effort. There's this ease, and you start to relax, and then you become familiar with what your hindrances are. And the Buddha, gives a lot of information about those hindrances, about what we should apply to ourselves when that's on. But if we don't know the context of ourselves, to be able to make good decisions, like this is the time, because I know I've had time to relax, and I know I've got a greed issue, this is the big thing for me, or I've got an anger issue, I'm having, irritation. We can't see it and apply the right medicine. So we may be just having the practice without understanding the conditions, and making the wrong effort and pushing ourselves that close us down. So I think that's sort of just what I can offer you after that excellent room.
Thank you so much, Venerable, and thank you for introducing that theme of kindness. Yes. So important, very, very important. What I'm hearing from all of the speakers is the importance of contextualizing effort, and to know when to put in effort in what skillful way, and when to have that ease and be able to be in cruise control. Now, defilements are pretty sneaky, and sometimes they come in almost as if it's telling us various things that aren't actually what we need. So in that moment, it would be like, oh, you deserve to sleep for another 2 days. I certainly have had those moments. And then there are some times when it's like, yes, we should put in the effort. We're on this retreat for 7 days, and we've only got 7 days, and then we have to go back, so let's put in the effort. And it sounds like, okay, it is something that we could take on as good information, and then only afterwards we find out maybe that wasn't the right striving. So for those who are struggling in this way, any advice? And I'm putting it out to the panel, it could be anyone.
Well, actually, I would just go back to the words of my own teacher, Ajahn Paisano. And his constant emphasis was to experiment and see what happens. This is how we learn. So then afterwards you're like, oh yeah, wow, I really was trying too hard. I should have relaxed more. Afterwards you're like, actually I was slacking off too much and I didn't really make any progress. And then next time you're a little bit more prepared to make the right choice.
What comes to mind is also, actually in the suttas, we see how, for example, what comes to mind is the Bhikkhuni Samyutta, one of my favorite parts of the Samyutta Nikaya, where there are all these amazing bhikkhunis that they're all arhats, and Mara comes in and kind of sneaks in and tries to insert all sorts of crazy defilements in their mind, right? And since they're enlightened beings, they always go like, is this a human being or a non-human being? Oh, this is Mara, the evil one, trying to instill fear, trepidation in me. And so they're like, oh, I see you, Mara. So I feel like what is very useful is to cultivate that same approach. So rather than identifying with the kilesas, kind of seeing how these kilesas are there, external, and going I see you, Mara. So I see you, laziness. I see you, greed, I see you aversion, I see you whatever. And when we actually see it, then we become dispassionate. If we instead are afraid of acknowledging the presence of the kilesas, that's when the kilesas really catch us, right? And we can also sometimes, as spiritual practitioners, start acting rather than shedding the kilesas. So we act enlightened rather than become enlightened. And so that's also a very sneaky thing. So what I find very useful with myself is actually to be very open with my stories of unenlightenment, like with also my spiritual companions, and actually talk about it, talk about the difficulties, talk about the kilesa, talk about the struggles, and then also congratulate myself when there are those moments of wisdom. There are those moments when, we kind of like just win the battle with the kilesa and are like, oh yeah, great, wow. This time around, I actually didn't even have to put any effort. There are some times when we really are in a battle with the kilesas and the kilesas win, or maybe we will win, but it's like a lot of work. And some other times when we just actually have really internalized the Dhamma, and it's just very easy, like not to get angry. Like it's just, right? Like very simple. I remember when I was practicing at the very beginning with, as a layperson with 5 precepts, the first precept was very difficult for me. I was good at not killing human beings, but I was terrible at not killing insects. And I hated the hell out of them. We had an ant infestation, and I was like, really? I hate this religion. Why can I this is just so silly that I have to spend 4 hours like not killing these sentient beings. And so actually I did cheat sometimes. I was like, opening the water. Oh, look how the ants, I didn't kill them. It's just the water took them, right? So then I had to confront that. And I was like, no, actually you open the water, sister. And so once again, taking the precept, and after working with it and sticking with it, I remember seeing that ant in the sink and just instinctively going up to save her while I was washing my hands. And I remember having that instinct, like that natural compassion arising in the heart and going like, wow, I can't believe I didn't have ill will that I had to, restrain. It's just natural compassion. That was such a huge moment of faith, actually, in the teachings of the Buddha, where I was like, wow, the Buddha is so compassionate. He didn't tell us to love every sentient being. He just told us not to harm them. And by practicing, sticking with that, restraining oneself, one naturally starts loving them, and one starts naturally not wanting to harm them. So right now it's impossible for me to intentionally hurt a sentient being. How beautiful is that? Incredible, right? And so that is when we have internalized it. But there is that, right? We have to stick with it, stick true with it, and also be honest with ourselves and others. Like also go like, hey, yeah, I'm a serial killer of ants. I'm a Buddhist practitioner, but I'm terrible at this, and I need these restraints. Or yeah, now I did kill the ant, even though, right? And also as lay people, you can confess, right? Maybe you don't have it as monastics, but actually it's a beautiful practice that you can also do, that you go to another fellow lay practitioner and go, yeah, I was a little bad with that, but I take on the precept again. I take on this restraint, and I'll keep working with it.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Thank you to both Venerables for sharing those very beautiful teachings. And also, it's so important for us to know ourselves and to have that confidence in the Dhamma, and to know the Dhamma so well that, as I think one of the speakers was saying, to have that integrated into our life as well. Can I go back to a theme that was raised by a few speakers, which is about this, comparing this ease with the strictness of practice? Because in some practices, in some traditions, they do have these, what people may consider as very strict practices. For example, sitting and not moving for an hour, having these Atitana practices. Only the other day, Bhante Suddhāso's advice to me was to sit for 4 hours and not move. So, still his advice. So, we've heard a lot about the ease of the practice, which is very beautiful and very important. But is there a role in some of those more stricter practices? And if so, what would be the right way to cultivate those practices?
Yeah, there is a kind of a role for strictness. I think certainly in our monastery, one of the things we are is quite strict about the Vinaya, and we study it. I mean, actually, Vinaya versus tradition, because a lot of monasteries assume that the traditions are actually Vinaya, but they're not. So we study it a lot, actually, and we have we have Ajahn Brahm and Ajahn Brahmali who's translated the Vinaya and actually released it now in English, if both the Bhikkhuni and the Bhikkhu Vinaya as well. And so he talks about his translations, etc. Ajahn Brahm says, we follow the Vinaya strictly, but kindly. So we really, but it's not there to beat ourselves. We don't use it as a stick to hit other people or ourselves with, right? But we use it the way the Buddha intended is when we make mistakes, when we do something wrong, we confess it and acknowledge it, and we try and learn from it. You know, so there's a kind of a strictness there, but the great beauty of Buddhism is that strictness is not there to harm people and make you feel bad. It's there to encourage you to grow. And so even if I think about a sutta that I really like, is in the Anguttara Tens, is that for a virtuous person, no volition need be applied. Non-regret rises automatically, it just arises, right? And with non-regret, then joy arises, and you get rapture, tranquility, samadhi, and wisdom all arise, but no volition is applied at any of these stages. And this is the idea of sort of dependent liberation, right? That one step leads to the next, and it just arises. You don't have to make the effort or will something to come up in your mind. So these things will happen. But of course, the restraint of virtue is very important, you know. And so that's something that we probably we should be strict about, not killing ants.
The ants, thank you. Thank you, Bhante. Anyone else?
I thought that was really funny that you're good at not killing humans. That's the first time I've ever heard that.
It's a struggle sometimes, isn't it?
That was great. So maybe I'll be speaking a bit more about like some of the stricter practices that I've observed. So in Thailand, for example, one of the central things that was said to revive the practice of Buddhism and also the ability for it to lead to liberation was to take what they call the Dhutanga observances and place them at the center of the religion. So the Dhutanga observances are these 13, what you might call like ascetic practices, which when you read the Theravāda, they come up quite frequently actually in the descriptions of how the monks practice. They're things like not lying down to sleep, like only eating one meal a day, going on alms round every day. They're not really terrible, like don't eat food or like break your arm and stand on one leg. It's nothing like that. It's go on alms round every day and don't skip any house on alms round, these kind of things. Those kind of practices, when they're put at the heart of the Buddhist tradition, the lifestyle of the monks starts to resemble the lifestyle of the monks at the time of the Buddha a lot more. And this was one of the things that inspired me initially when I first came to Buddhism. I think I mentioned this. I was thinking about why aren't there any arahants anymore? And then this answer just showed up in my head. Well, nobody's living like they do in the time of the Buddha anymore. And so when these stricter practices are taken on, then you get these monks who wander from place to place. They stay under the trees without a home, and they subsist on pindapata food. And there's a power to that, and there's a restraint to that. As far as like when to apply it, one of the things that is often taught in the Thai forest tradition as well is that depending on your character, some of these practices may be good for you and others may be bad. So one of the really interesting divisions is actually people who like practices which reduce food don't tend to like practices which reduce sleep. And the vice versa. So people who like to sometimes really eat very fast are usually often not so good at going without sleep for long periods of time. So these are the types of practices that go against the grain and one would not naturally ease into. Like I never really eased into sleeping sitting up, right? Or you're not really just, some people might ease into like one meal a day, but generally they're things you have to apply your mind for. And then the critical thing in applying your mind in this way is to observe, are these practices which feel like a good fit for me? Like are they things which feel like they're reducing my defilements? And there's a really excellent sutta actually which describes how sometimes there's defilements which go away just by observing them. So there's kind of defilements that go away just through observation. And when one observes these defilements, one applies this means of observation to get rid of them. But there's other defilements that only go away through what the Buddha calls exerting a fabrication in this sutta, which means that we have to kind of come to recognize what, when it arises in our mind, is responsive to just kind of relaxing or watching and not interfering too much, and what, when it arises in our mind and we look at it, stares right back at us, as one of my favorite teachers likes to say. And in those cases, one has to exert a fabrication. So there's ease all the time that comes from eliminating defilements, and sometimes that ease is gained through relaxation. Other times, it's gained by staring back and counterpunching. And in this way, the defilements fall away. So I think just adding that as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Bhante.
And I just want to say a few words in defense of 4-hour periods of sitting meditation.
Every day, that was your advice.
Every day for 1 week was what I said. You don't need to do this for the rest of your life, but every day for 1 week, and you will thank me at the end of that week. Trust me, you will. Anyway, so the point of practices like that is actually what Pema Chodron called the wisdom of no escape. You create a situation where you cannot escape your own mind and see what happens. So that's kind of the point of some of these very strict practices. They're about putting you in a situation where you can't hide from yourself anymore. Because this is often what we're doing as we go throughout the day. It's like, well, okay, I'm going to do like 20 minutes of meditation because that's about as long as I can handle, and I'm going to like watch this movie for a little while, but then it gets kind of boring, so I'm going to listen to this music, but you can't listen to the same music all the time, so you got to switch it up every day, and I'm going to talk to that person, but they get kind of boring after 20 minutes, so I'm going to talk to that other person. And so we're always trying to avoid ever being a little bit too present with our own mind. We're always trying to switch up our distractions and opportunities to not look at our own mind, to not come face to face with our own defilements. So also the Dhutanga practices that he was mentioning, these are also ways where we come face to face with our defilements because there's no escape. Or the wandering practice that monastics often do. It's a way of putting yourself where you can't escape. You just have to face your defilements and come to grips with them. And that's what something like sitting for 4 hours straight will do. You'll spend the first half an hour or an hour trying to escape by daydreaming or spacing out or trying to plan your next week, but at some point you'll just run out of ways to escape. And you'll realize you're still sitting right here, your back still hurts, you're still bored, you still hate it, you still want to do something else, but you can't because you have another 2.5 hours left. And at some point, you will realize that the only escape is to relinquish your defilements with mindfulness, with diligence, right here in the present moment. That's the only escape. So that's the point of those kinds of practices. Cut off your escape routes and see what happens.
Thank you, Bhante. Sounds great. We're all going to try it, right? Thank you.
So Bhante's right. Actually, the way to have confidence and experience in that is you have to do those long sits. And if anybody wishes to practice like that, I have a recommendation to attend Ayyā Santini's retreats. She's having one in Bali in January. And they are what some practitioners would say is, wow, that's extreme. because, the first couple of days it's okay. By the third or fourth day, she says, okay, everybody hand in the keys to your room, and you're locked out of your room from the third or fourth day. So you can't go in, you can go to the bathroom there. So you're sitting and walking, and many people find it extreme. So when I was at some of her retreats, there were many in Ubud in Bali. So there's people that are coming at different levels, and they just get excited by the poster. They say Vipassana, but it's not like the Vipassana retreat, that other one. They just say Vipassana, and they are coming, more for the journey of the light and love. So we have to be very explicit, like, hey, don't wear that clothes, right? You wear the other clothes. And then the first few days they're picking flowers, because they're in holiday mode. They've come to Bali to sing and have the Agni fire. And then so many people, get challenged, and their speech and their behavior gets really wild. And she's got your passport. And you sign the paper when you arrive that you agree to the terms. No, serious. And you're not getting your passport. So that, for as a Westerner, it was like, Ayya, can you do that? What? But her, interesting, because I was kind of air traffic control. I had to deal with, many people were coming from, traumatic countries that were going through different wars in Eastern Europe and different stuff. So, the context, you actually need to go to the hula hoop class over there and just, feel good. But they saw the Vipassana sign. And so, having to try and talk them down through that thing. But you all are already established, mainly some of you that I know are practitioners, that suggestion or recommendation of Bhante of the 4-hour time, you really start getting results. And what I saw there was some young Indonesian people, and they're very gentle. They don't have, like, we're coming from a culture where it's like, I don't like this, I want a refund, let me out. They don't do like that. They follow the program. And at the end of the program, some of these people had never done, the 4-hour or the all-day stints, because it doesn't stop till about 9, 10 o'clock, and then you're up at 3 in the morning. But they wept at the end of these retreats before her in gratitude, because they experience what you will experience, Tina. They were so grateful. And it is, it takes some time, but she's very skillful, because she sort of shuts the door on day 3 or 4 or something, so you've had time to arrive and settle down. But it is that. We do need the kind of fencing if we're serious, because we can be strict, people can be strict to us, but I'm the best eel wriggler I know, right? If something's strict, like, I'll find the back door, I'll hack in, I'll get it, the defilements are tricky. Not only are they tricky, you have a more superior enemy, ignorance. We don't know. We don't know. So that 4 hours, I highly back up Bhante.
Thank you. So thank you to the two venerables. So it seems like no escape is the way to escape samsara. Thank you. So we now are at a time where we're going to open the forum to any questions. So if you're here in person, you can pop up your hand. If you are joining us online, you can pop up your electronic hand, or you can also put your questions into the chat. Okay, so fire away. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I don't know what to, I've got to, okay.
Just for the people online, so they can hear you as well. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, so I think I'll just go with the meditation question. I think something that does seem to happen maybe more than once, is that when things quieten down and there doesn't seem to be much to do anymore, and that may be a little bit kind of strange. Sloth, suddenly it would be there, like there'll be this peace that's there, and then suddenly sloth and torpor kind of whisks it away. And so I guess, yeah, I'm reflecting on that. I'm reflecting on, I guess, maybe like a sense of like, feeling like you don't want to start to try and do something again yourself. Yeah.
I can take that. Yeah. So those things, sloth, dullness and drowsiness, sloth and torpor arise, right? And because our mind is sort of quietened down a bit, but it's not joyful yet. You probably don't have that sense of joy or rapture. And in the early part of the meditation process, and certainly, that's what Ajahn Brahm teaches very strongly, is you need to find the joy. He says if you're not finding joy in your meditation, you're not meditating properly. You're doing something very wrong. And so he says, how do you find that joy? How do you find that path to land in that joy? Because when the joy comes, the energy comes, not necessarily the effort, and all the dullness and drowsiness just disappears, and you will feel your body becomes like straight, you feel like, wow, I can just keep going, right, for hours and hours and hours in this, and you're kind of balancing the energy and joy, you're keeping them both there. And so that joy is like the indicator, it's like the light, recording in progress, right, or something like that. It's like when the joy is there, okay, this is really good. And it's finding the way to that joy is a lot of the early part of the meditation. And in the way, I practice and the way I've been taught is that you find that by being kind with whatever's arising. So the dullness and drowsiness arises, you don't kind of push it away, you don't try and stop it. You say, that's fine, let's be dull for a while, right? And just watch that. And it's remarkable that kind of softening into something will actually bring the energy into your practice.
I would just briefly add to that there's something in your mind that's a little bit like a brightness setting or volume setting. And part of the skill of meditation is finding that switch in your mind. And so when you notice the mind starting to slip a little bit into dullness, you just turn up the brightness a little bit. And if you notice the mind getting a little bit too agitated, you turn down the brightness a little bit. So it's right there in your mind. It's not complicated.
You just kind of pay attention to it.
You need to catch the moment you notice the mind starting to slip into dullness, you want to notice that immediately and turn up the brightness. Also, sit with your eyes partly open. I really can't emphasize this enough.
Thank you. I had a question. So if your practice is, I guess, getting to the point where it's consistently joyous, and it might not be that long. It's like I'm not meditating for the 4 hours, but I'm finding, I'll go back to it. But I'm finding that my practice is very joyous, and I guess some of the growing pains that like myself and others might have experienced when you're younger, and your mind's like a cat in a bag when you try to, say, stop, we're sitting here, and it wants to get out. Now that's going, and I'm experiencing a lot of joy. Would you say that, balancing the ease versus effort, if it's getting too joyous, switch it up a little bit and try to do, I guess, the harder path for more growth? Could you maybe comment on that? Open forum, but if you may, you seem to have more.
Okay, I'll take this one then. Okay.
Take it for the team.
Yes, okay. So it's actually not the joy that's the problem, because the joy can go to levels that are completely unanticipated and will bring tears to your eyes and will open up your heart. Effectively, that joy gets stronger and stronger and stronger, and as the Buddha describes, in some of these things, and as, that when you start getting into very deep meditation where everything shuts out, all you have is joy, right? In this rapture, tranquility is this kind of wonderful, spacious ease, and this kind of beauty. Even equanimity is in a sense a great happiness, right? And then so these things, the path is one of just greater and greater happiness as you go through them. The problem is actually too much energy, right? So when the energy starts getting too much, you start becoming restless again, right? You start shifting. You're not sure what to do with it. And so the thing to do at that point is to really kind of relax, kind of allow that energy to focus on the joy, or come back to your breath, bring it back to your body, so that you're really using the mindfulness to manage, to kind of watch the energy level, and it's kind of getting too much at that stage. But the joy is fine, actually, and it just changes, changes from joy to rapture. So it becomes, in some ways, more subtle. And that's, again, what you're looking to try and keep in your meditation and focus on it, actually, and just enjoy it. Sometimes I find that just resting in the joy is very peaceful, right? Having the breath there and then the joy there, and then just kind of saying, okay, I can just stay here, right? I don't need to go anywhere. I can just be here. I don't need to do anything with that. I can just stay here with this joy and enjoy it. Thank you.
Enjoy the joy.
Yeah.
There's some questions online, so the first question is for Bhante Suddhāso, but others, if you wish to add to it, you can. So the question is, if the joyful path, talking about joy, if the joyful path, like with metta, can at least lead to not being born again into this world, then why practice in the more difficult ways, such as Ayyā Santini's retreats?
So that is a misreading of the Karaniya Metta Sutta. So if you look at the Karaniya Metta Sutta, it actually gives a very lovely progression where it's actually focusing on external activities and how we relate to the world and how we relate to other people externally, which creates the support for the mind being able to enter into metta bhavana as a meditation practice. And then cultivating that metta meditation eventually leads to a point where then you get to the last stanza or so of the Metta Sutta, Karaniya Metta Sutta, where the Buddha cranks up the notch, cranks the dial up a few notches. He's like, okay, you've got some metta, that's great. Now it's time for the graduate training. So dittincha anupagamma silava, so not sticking on any viewpoint, so letting go of wrong view, going beyond wrong view. So here he's saying that it's not enough just to have metta, you also need to let go of wrong view and cultivate right view. This actually is a really critical statement, because you can have a lot of metta but also a lot of wrong view. So cultivate right view and let go of wrong view. Silava, that means it's not enough just to have metta, you also need to cultivate an all-around virtue. You need to cultivate a morality which goes beyond just thinking nice thoughts about people. So dittinchunupagama silava dasanena sampanno. Again, dasanena sampanno means endowed with vision. So dasana in the suttas, in many places it refers to the Four Noble Truths. So seeing the Four Noble Truths in your experience. So again, this is based on right view, but it's about actually seeing those principles in your daily life. So using the doctrinal frameworks of the Four Noble Truths and so on as frameworks to see our life. Like I'm looking at the world through these glasses. Well, your glasses should have the Four Noble Truths inscribed in them. So I'm looking at everything in terms of the Four Noble Truths. That's dasanena sampanno. And then he says, kame suvineya gedang. This means getting rid of all desire, attachment, and greed for sensuality. And then this is usually when people are like, can I take a rain check on that? It's like, does it really have to be all sensuality? There's a few kinds that I really like. And yeah, but of course you're not getting non-returner if you still have attachment to sensuality. And the Buddha says, if you do all of that, built upon this foundation of metta, then you will become a non-returner. So it's not actually the metta that leads to non-return. The metta forms the foundation for cultivating these capstone practices that lead towards non-return.
Great answer. Thank you so much, Bhante. Anyone else wish to add to it? Okay, otherwise we have, someone says, yes, by not holding to false views comes before. Thank you for clarifying, Bhante. That was from the questioner. Thank you very much. We have one more question from someone online, and then I will come back into the room if anyone has a question. The question, this one is for Venerable Akiñcana. You've been called out. So, but again, if anyone else wishes to add, you can. So the question is, can you please talk more about the role of mindfulness in service to right effort?
Okay. So, sorry. Yes, so when we are mindful, we're attentive. We're attending, I think satipatthana is upatthana, is like standing near and being close to something. But, and that actually creates its own energy, but effort, I think where people like teachers like Ajahn Brahm says where we go wrong is we think we need to force that, right? You know, that effort or forcing ourselves to be near something. But actually, he's saying that actually energy can arise, but effort doesn't have to be there. That energy, there will be things that cause the energy to arise. And when you're mindful, actually energy does arise. And mindfulness can be actually quite relaxed. You can stand, you're not really standing at attention, being very tense, really focused, because the problem with that is you can't do that for very long. It's just not possible, right? You actually drain yourself, so like you're draining the, in an EV or battery-driven thing, you're just draining the battery really fast, the energy runs away and you become quite tired. And then as soon as you're tired, all the defilements start hitting you, right? Because your mind can't really sustain attention. You become restless, you're moving around, and as you become restless, you go into this vicious kind of cycle of restlessness and irritation. Why isn't my meditation working? What's going on, right? So what we're trying to do is stop that process from happening by relaxing into it and allowing the energy to rise naturally. No volition need be applied, right? That if joy is there, non-remorse is there, joy arises. So if we actually look at dependent origination, what the Buddha is saying is that there's causes for things. And when you put the first cause into place, the next thing arises. And it doesn't mean just sort of negative things, but it also means positive things. So we don't have to make the effort to try and get that next step. We just put the cause in. And of course, many things, the initial cause is often virtue, right? And joy. And those are the initial causes for further things to be there. So mindfulness is being attentive, but being relaxed. Being kind as you're being attentive. And kindness sort of prevents you from getting tense, from focusing too hard. I'm sure many of you, like you know, I used to ride motorcycles a lot, right? And I had a love of motorcycles. And anybody who rides them will know that you're riding a big motorcycle that accelerates very quickly, has a lot of power. If you get tense and grab onto the accelerator or you grab onto the brakes, you'll crash straight away, right? It's highly dangerous, but you're in a kind of tricky environment and you're moving through space in a thing that feels like you're flying a jet, actually. It really does. I mean, they're so powerful that when you accelerate, you feel the G-forces on you. But you learn how to be relaxed and attentive. You're kind of sitting there, and then as you get more used to it, you actually can really enjoy it. You actually, because when you're tense and sitting on this machine, you get tired very easily, right? Your hands get tired, your back gets tired, you just want to get off, and it's horrible. You just think, why am I doing this? But as you relax, it becomes more and more pleasurable, more and more enjoyable, and you can ride for much further.
Great analogy. Thank you so much, Bhante. Okay, anyone wish to add to that?
Just adding to these excellent similes, and especially in the way that I was taught meditation, that's commonly taught, is that you have these practices which are based on calm and samatha, which really well described. I like the motorcycle analogy, and balancing it. And then you have ones that are based on vipassana. So vipassana is actually not a word that's usually associated directly with a meditation topic in the Pāli Canon. What the Buddha uses as a word that's associated more directly with this type of meditation is sanya. So he calls these types of meditation topics perception topics or sanya topics. So there's some types of, again, defilements that respond to making the mind calm, and there's others in which one has to exert a counter-perception. And one can often see this, especially in cases where defilements arise in relation to like anxiety or fear or worry. There's often a perception that one's held in mind, and it's often false. Can be false, and then, I'm so worried about whatever it is, and then it turns out to be false, and then another day later, another perception arises. So there's actually a skill in taking that perception and holding a different one in mind. And the way that the mind tends to construct the world is actually made up a lot of perception. So it jumps from one thing, thinking about this, and then thinking about that from different angles. And in this way, it builds a world that seems very solid. So there is this aspect of meditation that's fortified by the calm that the Venerables have been talking about, which allows the mind to be steady and then allows it to create the perceptions and the world that it wants. And this is something that's very, very powerful, because with our thoughts, essentially, the mind is the forerunner of all things. And so if we speak or act with a pure mind, then we have happiness follow us like our shadow unshakable. And in the same way, if we can create our world from perceptions that are good, that are balanced, then we gain much more control over how we react and how the world affects us. So there is this other type of meditation as well. I thought I'd bring that up.
Thank you, Sadhu. Okay, any questions from us? Yes? Oh, wait, hold on. Mike is coming to you.
Thank you very much, Venerables. I have a question for Bhante Joe. So, just in regards to the Dhutanga practices that you were talking about earlier, I'm just, it's kind of a two-part question. I'm just kind of curious whether there's a direct causation there. And is that a reason why maybe in this current generation we're not seeing as many arahants as the previous generation? I don't know the numbers, but it just seems that way. And then I'm just curious about us as lay people who want to take our practice further. Are there any specific Dhutanga practices that we can kind of incorporate in some ways into our lives, and what your suggestions are there?
That's a good question, and I think one that the other Venerables would like to pitch in. I won't pass the mic. I was gonna so I don't think that it would exclusively be the dying away of the Dhutanga practices that would lead to the decline of Buddhism. Actually, what we tend to see historically is that in traditions where the Vinaya gets revived, like a strong practice of Vinaya gets revived, then meditation tends to follow, almost like the Venerables were emphasizing, where Sila is the foundation and other things follow from that. So in the revivals that we've seen in the modern age in Thailand and Burma and Sri Lanka, it started with the Vinaya. So in terms of the Dhutangas, that was almost the heart of the Thai forest practice. Along with meditation, they were very strongly emphasized, the Dhutangas and staying in solitude. So they go very well together because not everybody's rich enough to be able to afford like a nice country solitude retreat, but almost anybody can go stay at the root of a tree, right? I mean, so if everybody wants to practice, then there's plenty of trees available and people can go stay there. But you have to take on the dhutangas to do it. So in terms of lay practice, actually, this is, again, I've said before, one of my areas of interest. And actually, it is possible for lay people to take on the dhutangas. One of the best times to do that is if they're keeping the 8 precepts once a week. On the same day that they keep the 8 precepts, that's when you can really start to practice more like a monastic and to experiment with these dhutangas, kind of sleeping on the floor and only eating 1 meal. That's much more possible, obviously, if you're not eating 2 meals, if you're not eating in the evening. So I would strongly recommend that as a lay practice, taking on the 8 precepts. And then the further step that you mentioned, taking that further, is actually to experiment with the dhutangas. So actually, know one lady, it's actually a very inspiring story. She's Burmese, and we were just talking about the 8 precepts, and I was saying to her, yeah, you know, I don't know, I was complaining about this for years. I don't know anybody who keeps the 8 precepts once a week. And then so she started keeping them. And then she started keeping them all the time. So now she keeps them constantly. She's been doing that for about 8 months. And she started to take on the dhutangas. So she started to actually create retreat spaces in her house where she would basically shut her door and practice meditation for many hours and take on long periods of sitting. And then try to take on practices like not laying down to sleep. And then she actually got this big kind of bowl, and she takes all her food and mixes it together. So that kind of form is not something that's only accessible to monastics. It becomes more accessible to lay people if they take on the 8 precepts. And in this way, I believe, that's probably one of the main reasons why there were so many lay people who were stream enterers, once returners, and non-returners at the time of the Buddha, is because they started to practice in a way that was almost just like the monks. Because at the end of the day, there's only one Noble Eightfold Path. So everybody who wants to get its fruits has the opportunity to walk it. So that's a few reflections.
I feel like, not sure how well you mind read, but I feel like you've already touched on the some of the answers to or some of the topics that I was thinking of. But I wouldn't mind asking if you're interested in going into in a bit more depth. But sorry, Venerable Akiñcana, because you were touching on you know, how the path almost unfolds as a result of causality, and I thought that was really fascinating. I was kind of interested in that concept of the gradual path as well, as like the effort is almost like I don't know, not to just like strive for this objective, but you just kind of almost like you do the first step and it kind of I wonder if you could expand on that, because I just find it so like
yes, yeah. So that there are suttas talking about that once that in a way what it is very profound. It's saying that actually we're not really in control. You know, there's nobody really walking the path, and so if you think that you are doing something and I'm in control, I'm the agent following this process, that will block you, right? Just as when you are, it's actually a form of delusion that is actually now becoming a dominant aspect of the path. If you think, I'm the agent, I'm doing these things, this is my path, I'm the one walking it, right? And then you're back at ignorance or delusion, you know, and then you have a lot of volition, right? You know, or willing, sankharas are driving. You're using sankharas to try and enlighten yourself, and they're actually kind of drowning you instead. And then with sankharas, you know, then you get all the rest of the dependent origination, right? Then in the negative way, you're kind of going towards thirsting, craving for things in your practice. And so what the Buddha is saying, okay, no, you don't really need to do it that way. That if you are virtuous, then you become happy because you don't have remorse, you don't have regret. And virtuous not, oh, I'm not killing things, or I'm not being nasty to somebody, but you're actually going the other way, that you're living a life of great virtue. I think, you know, there is a sutta where the Buddha says that actually we purify ourselves, we bathe in goodness, right? That's how we actually make our heart pure, you know, through that goodness. And that allows you to start experiencing joy a lot. Actually, the Buddha said you can't not experience joy if you live that way. You don't have remorse, you have an acceptance of people. You love actually other beings, even ants or animals. You have an appreciation for conscious existence, right? You sort of start to understand that, and you understand the beauty of it. You're not attached to it, but you understand the beauty of it. And when that happens, then actually your meditation becomes more easier. The energy starts, it just arises. You're not trying to force the energy in. Of course, at the early stages, we're kind of a bit distracted and all these other things are doing, but we keep coming back. Ajahn Brahmali says, if you're having difficulty with your meditation, stop, go out, and say something really nice to somebody, sincerely, right? Or go and do some service. That's put the energy into your service to, go and say to somebody, hey, you look tired, I'll do your job for you, which, we do actually, or I'll help you with that, or why don't you let me do that thing that you're really struggling with? And then he says, come back later and see what happens in your meditation. So these steps, they just naturally cause these things to arise, and we're moving away from the agent doing something, which is itself a problem for us, to actually understanding these are just natural phenomena, and I'm allowing these phenomena to arise. I'm allowing beneficial states of mind to arise. I'm just opening up and being spacious to them.
Any last questions? Okay. Oh.
How you guys venerable? Hopefully you're enjoying your time in Sydney. I'm just curious, how do you maintain the energy? Looking at your schedule, from hours to hours, it's full packed the whole week or even 2 weeks and stuff like that. People like us, go to the work, sometimes can relax a little bit, getting home tired. And if you do meditation, it's good. But now during the retreat especially, right? It's nice to have retreat. And then when you hit back to the reality, how do you maintain that consistency from the nice retreat back to the real life and maintain it so we can hopefully maintain this a long time? Thank you.
Well, we don't waste energy. So there's many times during the day for people I observe, even when we're driving by, people will look in the phone and the energy is going outside. The default setting, because we are committed to using our precious human life to ennoble our minds. And so what happens is you get these healthy habits, meaning that even when the Bhantes are talking and we're sitting here, we have some tools where we just naturally stay inside in stillness and quietness without thought and just peace. And that is restful, so we don't deplete the energy that we have, because we're also physical beings. And as we age, as I'm getting older, we know for women we are going through different sort of hormonal changes. There's different levels also for men. We don't waste the quota that we have for our lifespan. And then we also have the ability in that resting default setting is to energize and bring up that energy and to sustain that kind of operating system that does not waste energy. And we have tools, if it starts to deplete, we can reflect about the goodness in people, the choices that we made, and the opportunities that we have invitation to share the Dhamma, and this also energizes us. So these tools you can do. Any moment, arrest the habits to look at the phone, tick the phone, play with the finger on the screen, and just return inside. Just try to arrest and go inside, and just a few minutes to breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. until it becomes very well established, and you will know for yourself. That is, as you see, the very hard-working Ajahns now, Ajahn Brahm, some of the Mingyo Rinpoche from all traditions, it's like maybe 2 or 3 hours sleep sufficient.
So we have a two tone, right? To dial when we want to stress out, we want to relax, and another dial is to energize.
Breathe in.
Yeah.
May I?
Take a break from the exhaustive self. Take a break from yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'll just add, actually, I had once the great privilege of doing a one-day retreat with Matthew Ricard, and it was just a remarkable experience of being in the presence of somebody who's so calm and gentle, and he talked a bit about his work. Actually, I don't know, he has something like 50 or 60 clinics and schools. He said I've lost count of the number of new institutions that they have built in Tibet, in Nepal, in India, and they basically provide medical services to people living in impoverished and rural areas, and also schools, right? And but that was kind of the service part of his life. He's not the abbot of his monastery. He teaches and he's of service, right? And I think, again, seeing people like Ajahn Brahm as well, they get a lot of energy from the service and from compassion, from being with people and helping them. And this is kind of what Matthew Ricard was talking about at that retreat. He said, compassion fatigue is a kind of an oxymoron, right? It's a contradiction, and it doesn't exist, actually. He said, there's no such thing. And he said, because there is empathy fatigue, empathy is a good thing, but experiencing or sharing the suffering of others is actually quite draining. At some point, it will, and he said particularly because he was effectively the boss of a lot of healthcare workers and psychiatrists who are dealing with trauma, he said, if you're constantly working with people and you're empathizing with them, sharing and participating in the suffering, then it's incredibly draining, and actually will lead to sickness and ill health and affect your meditation practice. But he said compassion is limitless, right? And he said the universe actually, and so he taught us a Tonglen meditation, which requires courage and compassion. It's a very beautiful meditation, right? And he says, how do we, Tonglen meditation is where you breathe in all the suffering of the world. You imagine a dark, smoky, dense substance that you breathe in straight into your heart. And you say, I'm taking in all the suffering, you're drawing it in with each breath, and then you convert it into this kind of bright, almost white substance, almost like a milky white, but very bright. And that's the compassion of actually healing the world and sending it out with your out breath, right? And so, of course, he says that the challenge with that is most people think, if I do that, am I going to get sick? I'm going to get I'm breathing in all the cancers of the world. I'm breathing in all the accidents, everything, right? I'm just breathing all of that stuff in. And so he says, it's interesting, you have the experience of thinking, I can't do this, right? What if it hurts me? What if I'm harmed by taking on this suffering? And he says, part of this process is to actually understand, no, you're not going to get harmed, actually. And he says, and then you draw the compassion from the ground, you draw it from the universe. And he says, there is no limit to it, it's limitless. And so the practice is to understand and start to experience that you can tap in to this limitless compassion. It's actually, the Buddha says it's one of the Brahma Viharas, right? It's immeasurable, and it exists, and it's there. Ajahn Brahmali says actually the Brahma deities, that's pretty much their only thing that they do. They suffuse the world with loving kindness or compassion or sympathetic joy. So he says this practice is to understand that this is immeasurable, limitless, and to use that in your life, both in a monastic life, but your life is your life, right? Whether you're sitting or you're out at your work or being with your family.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bhante. Such beautiful sharings today. Before we close, does any of the Venerables have any closing remarks? Okay, well, if there's no closing remarks, then I just want to say, listening to all of the sharings today, I really understand why they say the Dhamma is beautiful in the beginning, in the middle, and the end. I genuinely mean it. I think that tonight's sharing was just so beautiful and heartfelt, very practical, and really speaks to what it is that we need to practice and what it is that we can embody within ourselves as well. So I just want to say a very big thank you to all of the Venerables. Thank you for your sharing, your presence being here, but also your dedication to the Dhamma, because that is really inspiring for us to see. That's very inspiring for us to know that no matter where we are in all the corners of the world in which you all come from, that we can all be gathered here today because of the causes and conditions and all the auspiciousness that brings us here, and the great fortune that we have to be able to share with each other and also to practice as a group as well. So I just want to say a big thank you, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu.
And thank you to everyone for joining us in person and also online. A shout out to Bhante Suddhāso. Hello, Venerable. You thought you could sneak in without us noticing. So maybe some brief announcements and then we can do a closing and some chanting and paying respects, if that's okay. So just some announcements. Of course, as you may know, we had the 10-year anniversary of Metta Centre that just finished. And so the Venerables, they came just for that, to celebrate that. So we're very fortunate to have them come, because not only did it support what we were doing at Metta Centre, which we're very grateful for, but also other Buddhist organisations and also householders had the benefit of meeting the Venerables and inviting them into their centres as well as also their homes as well. And so we really hope that the Venerables will come back again to Sydney. Despite all of the stresses, it is still a beautiful place, and I hope that you can come back. And to the announcements, so every Monday night we have Dhamma talks. Usually it is in Bankstown, Western Sydney University, and also on Tuesdays we have yoga in the same location. And Wednesday nights we also have teachings and particularly meditation focus at Parramatta, Western Sydney University. And this Wednesday we have Bhante Suddhāso and Ayya Somā. Am I right? Yes. Okay, so if you would like to...
Life's turning points, lessons from letting go and starting fresh.
There you go. Wonderful. Another wonderful theme. So if you would like to join for that, you are welcome to come. That's Parramatta, Western Sydney University. Now, for our Monday and Wednesday sessions, you can also join us online because they are hybrid, as some of our friends are doing online now. And we also have once a month teachings at Parramatta South, Western Sydney campus, and that is usually with the Santi Forest Monastery nuns who come, and you can check out all of that information on our website. We also have different events that we organise at various times, so we have some special events coming up. We've got some retreats in January, so you can check that out, and these are from different teachers from different traditions. If you aren't already connected with Metta Centre, then we invite you to join us on our WhatsApp group, as well as also our emails that come out once a week, and you can follow us on social media, Facebook and Instagram. And of course, all of these talks, they are recorded and they are put on our YouTube page. In fact, we have big thanks to Eugene, who has very quickly edited our Metta Convention videos, and they're all on our YouTube already. So you can actually access all of that. So thank you, Eugene. Okay, so perhaps we can end now with some dedication of merits and chanting. Thank you, Venerables. That'd be nice.
Yeah. Lovely.
Karaniya kusalena yantang santang padang abhisamecha sakko ujucha sujucha suvachocha samudu anatimani Santu Sako Cha Subaro Cha Appakicho Cha Sallahukavutti Santindriyo Cha Nipako Cha Appagambo Kulesu Ananugido Nachakudang Samachare Kinchiyena Vinyu Upe Upawadeyum Sukino Wa Kemino Hontu Sabbe Satta Bhavantu Sukhitata Yeke Chipana Bhutati Tasawa Tawarawa Anavasesa Dighawaye Mahantawa Majimara Saka Anukatula Titawa Yecha Atita Yecha Dure Vasanti Avidure Bhutawa Sambhave Siva Sabbe Satta Bhavantu Sukhitata Naparo Parang Nikubeta Natimanyeta Kata Chinang Kinchi Biaro Sanapatiga Sanya Nanya Manya Sadukamicheya Atayata Niyang Putang Ayusa Eka Putang Nurake Evam Pisa Babutesu Manasang Bhavaye Aparimanang Metancha Sabbalokasming Manasang Bhavaye Aparimanang Pitang Ado Chachiriyancha Asambadang Awerang Asapatang Titan Charang Nisino Va Sayano Va Yavatassa Vigatamido Etang Sating Aditeya Brahma Metang Viharang Idamahu Itincha Anupagamma Silava Dasanena Sampano Kame Suvineya Gedang Nahi Jatu Gabaseyang Punareti.